they would make fun of and laugh at the man they just stabbed as he was bleeding on the road. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Ryan O'Connor. Viewer discretion is advised. At the time of this case, Ryan O'Connor was a 26-year-old father who lived in Newport in Wales. He was a fun-loving guy who was just simply enjoying life. It was June 10th, 2021. Ryan was enjoying a very fun day. He went out and golfed. Then he went out to have dinner with his brother. Afterwards, he was just walking down the road on his way back home. Just an innocent guy just finishing his day. It was in this exact area in Newport where Ryan was walking when all of a sudden he was accosted by a group of young kids. Ryan was carrying a Gucci bag, and apparently these kids were in a stolen car, by the way, and they wanted the bag. And so they stopped the car and they began to basically pursue Ryan without him really realizing what was going on. At least two of these kids were armed with very large knives. And here on this sidewalk, they began to just stab him. They stabbed him 5 times, one which pierced his heart, another pierced his left lung. They then stole the Gucci bag and they ran off, laughing. Ryan was not killed instantly. He was on the ground basically suffering. He was seen trying to stand up and kind of start walking. And that's finally when witnesses saw this and they ran to go help him. That's when they realized when he lifted up his shirt that he had multiple stab wounds, and so they called 999. As people are helping Ryan on the side of the road, before, the emergency services actually gets there, this exact vehicle is seen slowly passing by the crime scene. At least a couple of people from this car begin to taunt and make fun of Ryan. And they are heard very clearly laughing hysterically at his direction. Well, this just so happens to coincide when emergency services get there. They have an ambulance get to Ryan, but then this vehicle ends up in a high-speed pursuit. The pursuit lasts for several miles, but eventually police are able to basically box this car in and run them off the road. At least one of the individuals in the blue car tries to take off, but it does not work. You can see an officer here basically chasing after him, and then they're caught. All the individuals in the vehicle are apprehended. One of the individuals, a man named Jeremy, was actually live streaming this as he was being arrested. He was live streaming the pursuit, I guess. But these are the faces of most of the monsters involved in this. At the crime scene, they did find a knife, but they also found a couple of knives in this car. There were, I think, 2 or 3 pretty significantly large knives in there. This is an image of just a couple of those bags of moldy twat juice. But the 2 main individuals, I guess, were Joseph Jeremy and Louis Aquilina. They were the 2 primary people who actually stabbed Ryan O'Connor. Also involved was another individual named Ethan Strickland, and then Kyle Raises. All of these young should-have-been abortions were aged between 18 and 20, except for Joseph Jeremy. He was 17. What they would find out was that the whole reason for this was because they just wanted to have a road trip of crime. They stole a car back from where they were from in Cardiff, the car they were later found in and apprehended in. Then they drove to Newport, where they just so randomly saw Ryan O'Connor walking down the street, and he was carrying a Gucci bag, and they wanted that bag and whatever was in it. And to hell with Ryan himself. So they found this innocent father, this just totally happy, nice guy who did not know them. They did not know him. They just chose him randomly. And then after they killed him, they got into their car. They then took a wrong turn into a cul-de-sac where they had to turn around and go back towards the direction of the crime scene, where they would later admit to what was witnessed, that they were screaming out the window at him dying. They were laughing at him, they were making fun of him and taunting him, which then leads to them being chased and arrested. It also doesn't help that one of those idiots was live streaming the event. I know they charged at least 3 of the individuals, but Joseph Jeremy, this guy here, he was convicted and he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum parole period of 24 years. Louis Aquilina was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum parole period of 22 years. The judge says that they honestly don't expect any of them to ever be released, but there is always that chance. They will both be 42 years old when they are eligible for parole for the first time. This guy here, Kyle Raises, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison for manslaughter. And then the other people involved were basically not given much time at all. This didn't need to happen, but it happened. And at least his killers are now in jail, and he got the justice he rightfully deserved.